SWOT Your Life, From Corporate Strategy to Personal Mastery by Walter Freeman. Chapter 2, SWOT in the Trenches. What business got right about strategic thinking? Before we apply SWOT to your life, I want to show you what it looks like when the stakes are measured in billions of dollars. Not because corporate strategy is more important than personal strategy, it isn't, but because business provides such clear feedback. When a company gets SWOT right, the results show up in revenue. When they get it wrong, they disappear. The lessons from these corporate laboratories apply directly to your kitchen table. Consider Starbucks in 2008. The company that had invented the modern coffee culture was dying. Same-store sales were declining for the first time in company history. The stock had lost half its value. Founder Howard Schultz, who had stepped away from daily operations, looked at the wreckage and delivered a diagnosis that should sound familiar. Starbucks had forgotten its strengths. In the rush to grow, the company had pursued every opportunity it could find. Breakfast sandwiches, music sales, merchandise that had nothing to do with coffee. They'd automated their espresso machines to serve customers faster, eliminating the theater of watching a barista craft your drink. They'd expanded so aggressively that stores were cannibalizing each other's sales. Schultz returned as CEO and forced the company through a brutal SWOT analysis. The strengths were clear: an iconic brand, prime real estate, and a workforce that genuinely understood coffee culture. The weaknesses were equally clear. They'd commoditized the experience, lost the emotional connection with customers, and grown past the point of quality control. The opportunity was the one they'd been ignoring. The mobile revolution was about to transform how people ordered and paid for everything. The threat wasn't other coffee shops. It was the growing perception that Starbucks had sold out. The company closed 7,100 stores for an afternoon to retrain every barista. They removed the breakfast sandwiches. They slowed down growth, and they bet everything on a mobile app that would let customers order ahead and pay with their phones, an opportunity that competitors had dismissed as a gimmick. Today, mobile orders account for over a quarter of Starbucks' revenue, and the company is worth more than ever. The turnaround didn't come from working harder. It came from seeing clearly. The sweet rise of strategic thinking. You don't need a billion-dollar budget to benefit from this kind of clarity. Consider what happened to a food truck owner named James in Austin, Texas. James had spent his 20s working in fine dining, then left to launch a barbecue truck. For 3 years, he chased every festival, every office park, every event that might bring customers. He was working 80-hour weeks and barely breaking even. A friend who worked in management consulting suggested he map out his business the way he'd map out a struggling client. James thought it was ridiculous. He wasn't IBM, but he had nothing to lose. Strengths. His brisket was genuinely exceptional. He had a loyal following of maybe 500 people who would drive across town for his food. He was personable, memorable, the kind of vendor people told stories about. Weaknesses. He was invisible online. His scheduling was chaotic. Customers never knew where to find him. He was terrible at tracking inventory, which meant he often ran out of food by 1 p.m. or threw away product at the end of the night. And he was exhausted, which was showing up in inconsistent quality. Opportunities. The food hall trend was exploding. Instagram had become the way people discovered new food. Corporate catering had huge margins he'd never pursued. And there was a vacant spot in a new development that was looking for exactly one barbecue vendor. Threats. His truck was aging and repairs were getting expensive. 3 new barbecue trucks had launched in the past year. The festival circuit was getting saturated, and his body was telling him he couldn't sustain this pace much longer. The insight that changed everything was simple. James was optimizing for mobility when his real strength was memorability. People didn't love his truck because they stumbled across it at random locations. They loved him specifically and would seek him out if they knew where to find him. He stopped chasing festivals. He took the spot in the food hall. He started posting on Instagram every day, not professional food photography, just pictures of the meat and stories about his customers. Within 6 months, he had a line out the door every day at lunch. Within a year, he'd hired his first employee and was home by 6 p.m. most nights. The framework didn't tell James anything he didn't already know. It organized what he knew in a way that made the right decision obvious. Why clear thinking is so rare? If SWOT analysis is so powerful, why isn't everyone doing it? The answer has to do with how our brains handle uncomfortable information. We're wired to protect our self-image. When evidence contradicts our preferred view of ourselves, we experience what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, a kind of mental static that's genuinely unpleasant. To escape that discomfort, we tend to explain away the evidence, minimize its importance, or simply avoid thinking about it. This is why most people can list their weaknesses only in abstract terms. I'm a perfectionist. I work too hard. I care too much. These aren't weaknesses, they're humble brags. Real weaknesses are specific and uncomfortable. I avoid difficult conversations until they become crises. I consistently underestimate how long things will take. I react defensively to criticism even when it's valid. The same avoidance applies to threats. We're remarkably good at ignoring dangers that would require us to change. A smoker knows smoking causes cancer but somehow doesn't feel that knowledge in a way that changes behavior. A person in a troubled marriage knows something is wrong but focuses on the demands of work and children to avoid facing it. A worker whose industry is being automated knows the statistics but assumes they'll somehow be the exception. SWOT forces confrontation. When you sit down with 4 quadrants and commit to filling each one honestly, you can't hide from yourself as easily. The structure creates accountability. This is also why SWOT is most powerful when you do it in writing. Thoughts in your head are fluid. They can shift and reshape themselves to avoid discomfort. Words on paper are fixed. You have to look at them. And that confrontation with reality is where transformation begins. The template that launched 1,000 strategies. I want to give you a basic SWOT template before we move on. This is the foundation you'll build on in every chapter that follows. Start with a piece of paper divided into 4 quadrants, or open a document and create a simple grid. Label the top left, strengths, the top right, weaknesses, the bottom left, opportunities, and the bottom right, threats. For strengths, ask yourself, what do I do better than most people? What resources do I have that others don't? What do people compliment me on repeatedly? What comes easily to me that others seem to struggle with? What values do I hold that serve me well? For weaknesses, ask, where do I consistently fall short? What do I avoid because I'm not good at it? What patterns show up in my failures? What feedback have I received that I've been reluctant to act on? What do people who know me well wish I would change? For opportunities, ask, what trends could benefit me if I position myself correctly? What resources are available that I'm not using? Who could I connect with who might open doors? What skills could I develop that would be valuable? What's changing in the world that might work in my favor? For threats, ask, what changes could hurt me if I'm not prepared? What weaknesses might become critical? What are people who want what I have doing to get it? What responsibilities am I avoiding that might catch up with me? What could go wrong that I've been pretending won't? Write at least 4 items in each quadrant. Not 3, not 2, 4 minimum. The first few will come easily. The last 1 or 2 will require you to think harder, and that's where the insights usually hide. Then look for connections. Which strength could address which weakness? Which opportunity matches which strength? Which threat could be mitigated by developing a new capability? The magic isn't in the quadrants themselves, it's in the relationships between them. In the chapters ahead, we'll apply this template to every major arena of life. But first, we need to establish where you actually stand.